Good morning, guys. So, we went over the story of the sheep and the shepherd, and that's where we left off. We were talking about some examples and some scenarios. The story that we left off of, we were talking, I think, about 20 herds, and 17 were somewhat large, and the bottom three were the kind of the smallest but the most peaceful, pretty successful. But the bottom three are no longer. The bottom three of the herds got taken over because the predators have amassed power and they spent no resources and they took no preventative measures at all. So their societies no longer exist. And it's not that their people are all dead or their shepherds are all dead, but their shepherds have had to conceal themselves and their people have had to adapt or live in a predatory like society. And what I mean by that is a communist or tyrannical dictatorship is what those people live in. Now, there's certain things that those people could have done, but they didn't. And just because they didn't take preventative measures doesn't mean we should wish upon them the circumstance that they are in now because they weren't able to defend themselves. Well, not exactly. And it isn't the case that they had no allies, even though they had no allies on paper. And when I say allies, I'm talking about the next six big herds. So we were talking about 12. So out of the 12, the bottom three kind of just do their own thing. They're peaceful. They don't mess with anybody. The six have an alliance. However, the six that are we're talking about, the size of the herd is what we're referring to. So the bottom three have the smallest population, and then the next six up have bigger populations than the bottom three, is what I'm trying to say. And so they have an alliance. The bigger six, they do well. They take some preventative measures, not much, but they take care of each other. And they can have the assistance of the next bigger population herds. They don't have alliance on paper, but if there's time, the bigger herds will assist them. And so that's kind of our world building, and that's kind of what we have explained. It's not exactly the United States situation. It's not exactly China's situation. Maybe there is a nation in which you live in, I'm not sure where you're from, that you could apply this to. But what we're trying to say here is that we have lost 3 herds now of sheep, and they have become predatory herds. They are now in dictatorships. They are not the people they used to be. And yes, essentially, the reason that they're in this place that they're in, well, is kind of their fault in some sense. And we'll kind of talk about that a little bit more. But so now we only have the next six big herds that have the population size that were bigger than the bottom 3. And those herds are doing quite well. They don't really take preventative measures. They get attacked on the occasion, but they do have the resources and alliances, and they stay tight-knit enough to each other to where they can protect each other. So they are actually surviving pretty well. And we said, I think it was that 3 of the top out of our 17 now, the top 3 are the biggest. They're the biggest herds. And those herds take no preventative measures. And those herds don't want to expend any kind of resources. Even though they have the most resources, they have the most capabilities, they don't really want to. They're kind of isolationist herds. Now, here's what happens. What happens is now, with the predators being able to take over 3 of those other small herds, they're able to amass a lot of resources. They're able to build their herds to a much bigger size, and with very few herds being willing to take preventative measures, well, they are kind of just freely doing what they want. Now we have the top 3, the biggest herds, no preventative measures. We have our bottom 6 now, no preventative measures. And so the in-between herds, I can't do quick math in my head. The in-between herds between the bottom 6 and the top 3 out of 17, they are actually taking preventative measures. They are doing what we think a shepherd-like society will do. Now, don't forget, these other bigger herds, or the smaller bottom 6 herds, it's not that they don't have shepherds. They do have shepherds, and I will argue that all shepherds want to take preventative measures. All shepherds have a innate sense of basic reality and basic need for survival. All shepherds have that innate sense. They understand what must be done. It's natural to them, and it is natural. Remember, we're arguing, it is natural to understand that you have to control the narrative outside of you, and you have to control the environment outside of you. And if you can't control it, well, you have to have some kind of real influence on it. And that's what we're truly arguing here. So we argue that about all shepherd and all herds know what must be done, but they don't always have the resources or the support of their herd to be able to do what they think that they should be able to do, which is taking preventative measures typically. Now, we talked about the herds that are actually taking preventative measures, and those herds are doing quite well, but of course they have to expend resources, and they're losing shepherd on the monthly because of these battles that happen. Sometimes they lose shepherds by the tens or hundreds within a year because of the battles that have to occur, but they're dwindling down the number of predators that they might have to fight, well, in the area. But now understand that the predators aren't exactly just going to go after the top 3 or the bottom 6 with those strong alliances. The predators are going to pick the weakest links. So maybe it's one of the people in the alliance in the bottom 6. Maybe it's one of the people within, between, or lower than the top 3. So whoever is weaker, whoever is easier to prey upon is what the predators are going for. But what happens if the other herds, like the top 3 and the bottom 6, aren't taking preventative measures? They're not doing their part to keep the predators down. The predators build up and amass resources around the top 3 and around the bottom 6, but then after they've amassed their resources, they send their predators, or the predatory sheep, they send the predatory sheep to the other herds to prepare for battle against the weak links. So what's happening is the weaker link herds, maybe they're weaker because they have more elders. Maybe they have less of a warrior population. Maybe they're just going through a famine and they're going through a tough spot and they don't have the resources at the moment. Well, those herds, because of the weakness or the decisions of another herd, are potentially going to be taken over or going to be mass slaughtered and killed. Now, you might think, well, how would the other herds not know that this is likely what's going to happen? Is they're going to open up other herds to being attacked or taken over, because usually the weak links are going to be attacked first. Why don't they have a problem with this? Why don't they see this as immoral to know that the likelihood that the weak link herd gets absolutely mass slaughtered is a problem? Why don't they think that? Why isn't this a problem here? And what you begin to see is that the sheep in these other herds kind of have this veil over them. And this veil kind of prevents them from feeling anything, from seeing anything. It makes them feel like, they're just kind of in this world where death will happen, herds will be taken over. It kind of just is what it is. There's nothing we can do to help these people. We have to take care of our own people. We're actually more moral for not involving ourselves and for allowing these people to fight on their own accord and not getting involved. We're actually more moral. Sure, 40,000 people get slaughtered. Sure, 2 million people live in absolute poverty. Sure, 200 million people have no resources, no likelihood of ever doing better for themselves or their children. Sure, that's the case, but really, we're more moral because we don't involve ourselves in that. We like to shed tears on the occasion. We like to go to third world countries, and how, it's so difficult to see. It's so sad to see, but we're not actually going to do anything about it, and we don't actually care about it, right? That's their culture. That's their life. Why should we get involved? We should absolutely be isolationists. We should allow them to take care of their own things. We should take care of our own people. So what if 10 million people die from starvation in Uganda? I mean, so what, right? I mean, these are just things that happen. So what if 5 million people in Tanzania just died from heat? Because a lot of people, not as much actually from heat. More people die from cold, to be fair. Look that up. But anyways, let's say 5,000 people in Tanzania died because they didn't have good housing and not good resources. These kind of things just happen. So what? So what? Right? These things just happen. So what you see is these herds really aren't that bothered. They have their own things going on. They really don't care. But you know what does bother the herds is when that in-between amount of herds, the ones that are going out and taking preventative measures and they're doing something, those herds are ridiculed. Those herds are problematic because they're actually doing something. Those herds are not only taking preventative measures against predators, but those herds are also on the occasion policing other herds and telling them what they should be doing. They refuse to share resources unless they produce a certain amount of shepherds. They're refusing to share resources or have alliances with them unless they agree to spend a certain amount of resources on their shepherds. Or move to certain lands to have certain resources or to be in certain strategic positions. They're refusing to have alliances and cooperate with these other herds if they're not going to do that. And, so the other herds, they don't like that. That bothers them. Why don't they just mind their own business like we do? Why are they interrupting? When these other herds interrupt, sure, 5 million people died in Uganda from starvation, but because of their involvement in trying to free a certain herd that is a sheepish predatory herd, because of their involvement, we've lost 40,000 sheep. And because of this loss of 40,000 sheep, we ridicule the herds that are actually trying to do something. Right? I mean, what are they thinking? What are they thinking? Well, I think we've had a great story. Let's wrap up how this story kind of ends, and then I'll show you the cycle that repeats itself. So as we go through, what happens is that out of the bottom 6 herds, the lion's herds, they lose another 3. Out of the top 3 herds, they lose one entire large herd. Out of the in-between herds, they lose another 3 herds. So we've lost 7 herds. That's a lot of sheep. A lot of sheep that have become predatory herds. Now the numbers are even. Now you have even numbers for the predators to start really attacking and start taking over land and herd by herd. So the predators begin to mass produce predators in their society. They become strict. They have curfews. They have certain social expectations of the sheep to produce certain predators and the amount of predators they want produced. They're cruel to their society. They're dictatorship-like. They control their means of productions. They control their business. They control what they see, what they watch. That's what they begin to do. And that's how you go about producing predators. That's how predators do it. And that's why they're so efficient. not only is it easier for predators to mass produce predators within a given society, it's the natural progression of peace times to not so good times. You see, they have kind of this natural thing that happens in societies. It's this natural regression of morality and ethics that occurs within people's minds, within people's actions, and that's what gets them to this position that they're in. So the predators not only have an easier time bringing up the kind of predators they want to see in a society, because they can be dictatorship-like, they can be cruel, and they can use fear as a means of producing what they want, but those people are naturally going to tend to come down to their level of morality and ethics. You see, those people will just come down with them. Not everybody, but it's always enough. I'll say it again. It's always enough. You can always bring enough people down to your level to control the rest of society. You always can. Now, I just want you to think about that really for a moment. It's so important that you understand what just happened to these herds. Some odd many years ago, maybe a generation ago, they would have never imagined that they would have been looking at this war in which they're going to have to lose perhaps 150 million of their people, of their soldiers. 150 million of their soldiers and of their people, and maybe an extra 50 million just for the cherry on top. They would have never imagined in the gen. And the older generation that's seeing this happen now has those regrets that they should have had. Now they're thinking, why did we take no preventative measures? How could this have happened? My children and my grandchildren will potentially lose their life while I sit here and I just hope that a missile doesn't drop on top of my home. But I'm not fighting alongside my children and my grandchildren. I'm too old. It's their war now. But it's too late. It's too late. That generation screwed over their children and their grandchildren. They screwed them over to have an easier time, a more simple life. For that purpose, they screwed them over. They didn't want to take preventative measures. They wanted to live for today. We had to take care of our own people. We're isolationists. Just because you're isolationist today does not mean that your grandchildren will get to be isolationists. The reality of our existence is that wars come and nations come and go. But your nation and your culture and your loved ones don't have to go. They don't have to. Instead of your culture and your nation being destroyed or taken over, you can morph into a different nation with a different people adding onto your culture, but there's no reason that your culture and your people, your way of life, they have to be destroyed. You don't just have to lay down and accept it. Stop just bending over. There's no reason for that. I can't express it to you enough how important this is. A lot of people already struggle to think 5 years ahead. Imagine having to think 20 years ahead or 30 years ahead. Imagine having to plan for 20 or 30 years ahead. But you don't just do it because do it for the love of the game, and you love war, and you love fighting, and you love loss. You do it for your children. You do it for your loved ones. That's why you do it. The wars that we do not fight, the battles that we do not fight today, the preventative measures that we do not take today will fall on top of our children and our grandchildren. And they will ponder to themselves, why are we involved in this world freaking conflict, dying by the hundreds of thousands? How did we come to this? And we're going to be either dead or old as shit, bawling our eyes out in pain as we experience the younger generation going through this loss. And we could have done something about it. But we won't. We won't. Well, the sheep won't anyways. America has some incredible shepherds. Incredible shepherds. But our sheep, they're going to fight us until they crumble our society. Our predators, they're going to fight us until they can take over and build the kind of society that they want to see. That's the end of our story. That's where we land. That's the end of our Sheep and Shepherd series. Even though we'll use those words on the occasion, that's the end of our Sheep and Shepherd stories. Now, the real fight begins. Bringing our stories to life. Bringing our stories, bringing it all together and showing you how it correlates to our reality. If you've already caught on, then you're probably just got a basic level IQ. If you haven't caught on, it's okay. It's okay, man. I'm about to explain. I'm about to break it down. Have a great day, guys.